Hi there, Benjamin Burr speaking, and I'm going to do a Docker Basics tutorial. So let's get started. The code I'm going to share that accompanies this video will have this page essentially on it in Markdown. These are the commands we're going to cover. These are the basic commands. It may look like a lot, but a lot of them repeat. Anyway, let's get started. So you usually start from a Docker file, and we'll cover that later, but for now what we're going to do is just get our hands dirty working with one. So the most important command is Docker images. So first one. And you can see that we have a bunch of images. Images are little VMs that don't have resources, and they use your computer as the host. So we're going to be working with these three, ignore the others. And from there, the next command is Docker PS. Now it's actually short for container ls, which is in the notes up here. And you can do LSA for all of them, and we'll talk about the difference. But there's a new shorthand out that you just do Docker PS, and it does the same thing. So we'll move forward with just that. So if you list all of them, -A, you can see things that are even stopped. So it's hard to know what that means without any context, but there are started and stopped Dockers, ones that you can interactively work on and ones that have already run. So when we start a Docker, we're going to do Docker run the name of it. Now the name has a special format, which is username, repository, and tag, and that's how you eventually share it and put it online. But for now, the whole thing is just a name. So we're going to execute this, and we see that it printed something. What did it print? It printed that I ran, and the environment variable name with value world is present. And so I set that up, and we'll talk about how to do that. But for now, all we need to know is that it ran. Yay! So what we actually ran was a container, which is an instance of the image. So let's go see our images. We don't have any. But if we look for all of them, we can see that we have a stopped one. And it has a name, a unique name, and an ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep going. So, well, now that we've ran this container, or run it, we don't need it anymore. So we're going to do Docker container remove Docker container rm. This is in the top of that code list. And then you can do the Docker ID, Docker container ID that is, or, and while that will work, you can actually use the name over here on the right, and it auto-completes, so it's better. And then you can remove it. So now, if we do this, we don't see anything. So moving on, we can also remove images, which is a little more permanent. So I made an image called delete me just for that purpose. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Docker image remove, and you can use autocomplete here. It's nice. And I deleted that. Now if you're watching closely, you'll realize that I didn't actually delete an image because this image and this image had the same name. I actually just untagged it. And all that really means is that when I made delete me, I actually, even though it's another image, it's really a pointer to a previous image. And that's why you see that the names are the same. So this is useful if someone shares a Docker with you and it's got their name repo tag on it, and you want to push to your repo tag, repo image tag configuration. So you can re-tag things with different names. Anyway, so now that we've removed that, we shouldn't see it anymore, and we don't. We just see the main one. Oh, excuse me. This one. So you can run interactively. Let's talk about what that means. So last time it just ran. If I run this, all of a sudden I have a new terminal where I'm root in some, on some machine, which is actually the Docker container ID. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But now that we're in it, we're also in this folder app. I specified that inside the Docker settings file, the Docker file. We'll get to that too. But what we're really getting at is I want to focus on the IT and bash, because that's the only difference between that command and this one up here. So I is for interactive session. T is to join the Docker terminal to your terminal. There's two terminals, so if you want to see inside the Docker, which we are, we have to join my terminal to it. And then bash at the end to override the preset command. Remember, the preset command printed out that message earlier. So I actually don't want it to do that. Instead, I want to overwrite that with bash. And now that we're in there, we can see that we have a main.py file, and I don't think I have vim, that all it really does is gets this environment variable name and substitutes it in right here, and then this is the message we had. So that's all I'm asking it to run. So we should be able to get the same thing to happen, and we did. So this is running interactively, where even though we got it to do the action we wanted, we're still inside doing stuff. So that's really powerful for obviously debugging and just interactively coding with it. So next is to detach from the container, we do Control PQ, and you'll notice that now we're back outside. We're in our regular area. But because we detached and we ran it interactively, it's still running. Now it shows up in PS and PA. So how can you get back into it? Well, we can attach to it by doing docker attach, and then we know that its name is kindmoser, so we can just attach to it and we're back in. So now it's just running indefinitely forever. So how do you delete it or stop it? So if you use exit to get out of it, you can do docker ps. Notice that it's not running anymore because we exited. And we can do docker container remove kindmoser. Now keep in mind, I'm pretty sure you can only do this when the container stopped. So what you want to do is I exited, which stopped it, but another way to do this is, so if we run and get inside again, now we have a fresh one, Control PQ. So what's going on here is that it's actually still in the running state. If I do gifted Lamport, it says you can't remove it because it's running. So I have to docker stop the gifted Lamport, and then I can remove it. And you see that if I do an exhaustive list of all dockers, it's now gone. So just keep those details in mind. You have to stop dockers before they're running, and if they are running, you can usually attach to them. So moving on, those names are auto-generated. So like gifted Lamport here, we can actually supply our own name. And so what I'm going to do is, I need to add that to the notes, but all I have to do is say, okay, excuse me, and then auto remove. So I named it that for a reason, we'll get to that, but you can see now that the name is auto remove. So if you don't mind, because this tutorial is good for everyone, I'm going to copy that, and the notes I'm keeping are right here. Cool, so now, yeah, this code's in there, and so, yeah, that's about it on that part. I want to go ahead and get rid of this, so, and let's start over and keep going. By my own rule. Stop. Auto remove. Boom. Okay. Awesome. So now, earlier I made the delete me image, excuse me, be more specific, the one that was up here, by tagging an already existing image. So this is different than the container name because this is the image name. So I'll copy this in. There already is, so it's docker tag, there already is this file, excuse me. This file already exists as an image here, and then we're going to rename it the same thing but give it a different name, and I don't want CC at the end, so just delete me. So now if we do docker images, we can see delete me is here, pointing to the same image ID. So that's how you create tags. So next you want to push to Docker Hub, or you might want to. They live on your computer, but you can also share them with people. And so if you go to Docker Hub, you can make an account, and it's pretty easy, it's free. And then once you have it, you'll be signed in. So here you can see my repo, and you can see that all these words in bold are my images. And then if I click on one of them, you can see that they have tags, sometimes one, sometimes multiple. Most people name their main tag latest, and everything else has a more specific name. So let's go ahead and put something up here. So you have to log in to be able to push to a repo. And not to be covered here, but you can set up credentials to auto know who you are, or you can specify the username and log into a specific account, which is what I'm going to do here. So once you're in, all it said was you did it. We're going to go ahead and push the image we've been working with online. So it shouldn't take too long because it's only Ubuntu and Python, but it'll take more than a couple seconds. But what's going to happen is it's going to go up here and make a new Docker demo image, and then it'll have one tag called from Dockerfile. And so from there, what we're going to do is just do a couple tips and tricks and then mount, and then that'll pretty much be everything. So just while this loads, I can go ahead and explain what we're going to do. If you remember, oh, it's done. So do we have any more containers running? No. Okay. So remember when we ran this, we had to go stop, and or if we exited, if it was stopped, we could delete the container, but we had to manually do it. You can auto code this to remove your containers if you know that you're prototyping something really quick. So you can just add this --rm. That's the only thing we're going to add here. So go --rm. Now since we're still running interactively, this is still here. We can do whatever we want, and that worked, right? So if we control PQ, notice that it's still alive. Yeah. But as soon as we exit, instead of just going into that stop state, it's now gone. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Excuse me. So somehow I jumped out of that, but it's still running. So I'll just continue. Here we go. So we're still in here, and if I type exit, that shouldn't exist anymore because we coded it to automatically remove. So you can still keep it running, but you do not have to actually delete it when you terminate it, which can be nice. So finally, mounting. So real quick, I think our image made it up here, so I'm going to refresh, and yep, there it is, Docker demo. So we can see the tag from Dockerfile, here it exists, and if somebody else views my site to get my Docker, what they'll see is this Docker pull command, because this is how you bring it down onto your machine. That's all you have to do to get it. So anyway, kind of did things out of order there, but we covered removing it automatically. You can push it online and we can see it. I could do a Docker pull. I forget exactly what it does, but let's just see if it overwrites mine. So it says image is up to date because I already had it, which makes sense. But if I didn't have it, it would go ahead and try to pull it down. So lastly is mounting. So mounting is to make a portal between your Docker container and your local machine. So this is the same command from before. The only thing we added was this piece right here. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. From here to here. So notice there's a space between these right here. So the first one is the name, oh, sorry, I was thinking of something else. When we mount, we do the left directory, which is your local, and the right directory, which is inside the Docker. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm highlighting the wrong thing. Left is your local machine, right is your Docker container folder. So let's go ahead and run this. So what's going to happen is we're in app now in the container, and if we ls, there's nothing in there, fine. And if we go on my machine, this is where I built from, you see that there's nothing in there. So what if we make a file? You can see now that it exists. And if we go inside here and make a file, we can ls and we can see it. So this portal now exists, and we can basically mount folders of data to our Dockers to do analyses, to do whatever we want. So I'm going to exit this, and because I said auto remove, it should be gone. Yep, perfect. And so that's the concept of mounting. And now finally the Docker file, which kind of automates everything we did. So this image, excuse me, right here, I built it off Ubuntu, which is right below it. You can see Ubuntu right here. And then I added some code and stuff to it. So how you do that is if you go here, don't think about this file. This file and this file and this file are the only three that we're going to deal with right now. And let me talk you through it. So a Docker file is a recipe file in a sense for how to construct and make your Docker. So you always start from something. You can start from Python images, you can start from Ubuntu, and that's what I did. Now remember, this is repo, or no, actually user or repo Ubuntu. And if we go here, we can see it. And you would just do Docker pull Ubuntu, it defaults to the latest tag. But I went ahead and specified. And then from there, we go on and do some things. So we'll start with that Ubuntu image that I already have on my machine. We're going to define an environment variable. This is where I got that environment variable in the Python code that I'll show you in a minute. So we're going to make one inside the Docker called name with value world. We're going to create this folder if it doesn't already exist, and then place ourselves in it, the working directory. And all these commands in caps are reserved words for Docker. So now, using copy, we can move data inside the Docker. So you're going to notice that I'm asking it to move app and requirements.txt. So it's going to move both of these. And that should be inside the Docker. Then, using run, you can run bash commands, because remember it's an Ubuntu VM. And I'm going to update the OS, install Python 3. I'm not going to expose port 80, although if you were making a website you could. And then here you hard code in, or you bake in an automatic command. So that first thing we did when we did Docker run, and that's all we did, just run this thing and see what it does, it actually went and looked inside the Docker and said, oh, you have this automatic command Python main.py, and this is the same thing. This is bash, but you put it in a list, and the arguments will automatically be separated by a space. So for whatever reason, that's how they coded it. So if we try this out, let's remove delete me and the original image. Oh, excuse me. So basically it was deleting a bunch of stored layers. And you'll see that I don't have anymore. I have Ubuntu. I'm going to leave that on there because it doesn't really matter. Actually, I guess it's probably better if I don't. Okay, cool. So we don't have anything on there. So the way that you do this is you do docker build tag -t for the default name is optional, but it's a good idea. And then you do a space dot. That dot's important to say, look in this directory for things that we're going to build. So let me just make sure I'm in the right directory. Docker demo. And this should work. So you'll notice it does step 1, and we can follow along the Docker file here. So first thing is go get Ubuntu. So that's what it did. It got Ubuntu, probably still downloading. It's going to make this environment variable. It's going to change the working directory, copy some data in, run some bash commands. So right now it's going to update, and that's going to go. And then it should install Python 6 with automatic yeses to everything. So that's happening right here, you can see. Finally, we're going to just run it. Actually, no, I'm building an image, so we're not going to run it. We're just going to have it, and then we can just finish up by running it to see that it all worked. So now it should be there. There it is. So we don't really need anything. I just want to do the regular run. Back to basics. And now it works. So that's pretty much full circle on how to run Docker, create containers, destroy them, clean them after them, everything you'd need. There's more advanced things you can do, like your Dockers can run on a network. This thing called Docker Hub that we're pushing to is a repository. You can make your own private repositories and push to those. So, but that's more for advanced users, and there's other things you can do as well. But anyway, that's it for today. That's a basic introduction, and thank you very much.